Hi, everyone. It's Amanda again. I have another topic for us today. I wanted to talk about enabling. I know that there's not a lot of videos up right now, but I'm kind of going in a pattern, kind of what's addiction, what's codependency, what's enabling, what are all these different behaviors that we're looking at when we're dealing with someone with addiction, alcoholism, acute mental illness, and how it impacts us. Yeah, when we look at something like enabling, and this was a tough one for me because so much of my personal identity was rooted in taking care of other people. And it came out in a lot of those ways. A lot of my fears surfaced when I began to look at what enabling is. Um, and I don't think some of us know what enabling is. If for the person who is a mom or a dad and has a child who you're experiencing this type of behavior for the first time, it is going to feel very foreign. And I tell families and people that I work with all the time that we're going to go against the grain when we're trying to learn to re-love our loved one. It is not the popular thing to do to not enable someone who is dependent upon us to get their needs met. And if getting their needs met include getting high or manipulating or putting other people in a less than desirable position, I don't want to say harm's way because I don't think that most of our loved ones are actually out to cause harm. I think that they're just suffering. And the only way they know how to not suffer is to indulge in whatever behavior brings them comfort. And if that means they have to utilize us to get relief, they will. But I don't think it's because they're personally hurting us. And I think that's something really, really important to remember that very, very seldom, 99.9% of the time, it's not a personal behavior. They're hurting themselves, they're destroying themselves, and we're just in the way. And sometimes we're just a victim of circumstance, not of the person. All right, so when we talk about enabling, enabling is, behavior that allows another person to continue in their using, whatever that is. And I think there's a lot of things that we need to talk about regarding the different types of enabling. When you're looking at kind of how these things get to the point to where we've got, a mom fully supporting a 40-year-old son who doesn't work and uses, parents for every need being met, and I look at it and I'm like, my goodness, how did it get there? I think we have to kind of talk about the different types of enabling. But I think that we need to look at kind of what some common manifestations of enabling are. And I think right now, something like that's going to be money to support their habit, a place to live, downplaying the severity of the problem, emotional support, lying to shield them from their consequences and rationalizing behaviors and making excuses for them. And I know that there's fine lines when we look at all of this. So like if we kind of look at each one of them individually, for example, the money one. I know that years ago, before Al-Anon, before therapy, before becoming a therapist, when people close to me would call and say, hey, I need $50 for a flat tire. I knew that it wasn't necessarily true. They had a lot of flat tires. And I strongly suspected that the money was going to be going to drug use. But my fear had me give it to them. I would justify my own thinking for as much as I didn't want to give them the $50, for as much as I knew that giving them that money was not going to be the best thing. One, I told myself, well, they're going to get it another way that could be much worse than me. Two, I was always so scared of them being angry with me. And within that, sometimes their behavior was really aggressive at times. It could be very manipulative, and they would know exactly, and they always know exactly what to say to kind of push our buttons and to get to us. Um, and I hated that. I was not capable at that point in my life of understanding that they're just saying what they need to say to get what they want. I took those words very, very personally. Um, but I would give them the money. And, so for as much as the relief of not being yelled at or manipulated or played with was met, the other fear that was in my head was, what if my $50 is the $50 that causes the OD? What if my $50 is the $50 that lands them in a horrible um, place, drug dealing place? And I had no control either way. So no matter what I did, I felt like it was a catch 22. Um, I always kind of allowed the emotion to dictate the decision as opposed to learn how to deal with my own feelings and set my boundaries and hold them. Boundaries will be another video kind of coming later on where we kind of break down the fear that we feel, the guilt that we feel. But, we do these things because we're enabling them. We feel these things in our enabling as well. Um, there's a couple different kinds of enabling. Um, there's fear-based enabling, right? Which could be um, they're going to make some threats. If you don't give me this money, I'm going to go kill myself. Now, I'm not here saying that we don't take suicide attempts lightly. In my home and in my practice, if a suicide is threatened, then authorities need to be called. Um, I'm not a mind reader, and I can never tell when somebody's actually going to commit suicide or if they're saying it in a manipulative way. Either way, someone who's threatening suicide needs to be helped in that moment. And so I encourage families, we don't know when they're going to attempt suicide, so I would certainly err on the side of caution. Um, they could tell you that they're going to harm themselves if you don't help them out. And these are really fine lines. Again, I'm not a therapist. This is not therapeutic advice. This is just food for thought. Um, if you don't give me this money, I am going to go cut myself. Again, that's the type of behavior that needs intensive care. And if my loved one is cutting themselves, pulling their hair out, harming themselves in severe ways, then the kind thing and the appropriate action, in my opinion, would be to call and get them some help. Call a mobile assessment mental health team, call 911 and get them some help if needed. Um, and so another fear is it's going to create conflict. Another example of that might be, you know, um, maybe the more maybe a boundary was put in place that one partner, let's say you're married, is going to hold the checkbook to prevent the other one from buying substance, porn, alcohol, um, drugs, whatever. And the other partner is really wanting to use, let's say it's been 8 or 10 days, and they're really kind of in that high place of wanting their need met, and they get aggressive, and they might even begin to physically bully or harm someone. um, that's another example of kind of fear-based enabling, right? I think if you've not stopped and walked through these scenarios before, we might not understand that's what we're doing. And it's scary. It would be scary to have some big husband, kind of start bullying over me and saying, giving me the checkbook. Those would be, but that's another example of fear-based enabling. Guilt-based enabling. Um, let's say we had a less than perfect go around parenting our 24-year-old kid. And every time they want something, they throw up, well, you and dad got a divorce and y'all drug me back and forth through the mud. And, it's your fault that I'm this way. And those words can sting. All parents, I think, know the sting of our kids being kind of a little less than ideal to us. Um, but it's not personal. And even if that's the reality, at some point, this person is going to have to take ownership for their experience in life. Um, I made mistakes as a parent, lots of them, and I have tried to right them to the best of my ability. Um, and most of my kiddos are adults at this point, and I will do everything in my power to help them work through the wounds of their childhood. I feel like that is something that I'm happy to help them. I'll provide them with therapy. Um, I will give them all the tools necessary, but they're the ones that have to heal the wound. I can't heal the wound for them. And my being a victim to their words and giving in to them is not going to um, help in any way, shape, form, or fashion. There is kind of victim based enabling. One of the things that they do there is um, it's not their fault. So an example for that one could be maybe, well, I didn't mean to fall and hurt myself and take these pain pills and become addicted. It's not like it was my grand plan for all that to happen. And, if you were me and you had to be in this pain all the time, you would be using and you could understand, but you don't understand. And you're being really unloving and unsupportive, and you have no idea what this feels like. Now, all those things might be very, very true. Um, but when we know that giving them their medication, their credit card, money, a place to live, whatever it is, when the addiction calls for hard boundaries, um, that's more of the kind of victim-based enabling. And then I think one of the hardest ones is hope-based enabling. And that's going to be with, I promise you I'll go get help tomorrow. I just need to get through today. Um, just one last time. I promise you I'm going to find a job. I promise you that I'm going to come up with money for rent this month, and I'll pay you back by the middle of the month. So can you please just pay rent this month? Or an endless barrage of promises of changed behavior. Um, I gave my buddy at work the password to my internet lockdown software. And so I can't look anyway, so you can trust me and not go through my phone. And I think the hard part about this is because our hearts want to believe it. Um, we're in such denial. And the reason we're in denial, which is a whole different topic, is because the idea of facing the depth of what we're going through is overwhelming. All the changes that we know somewhere inside of us that are going to need to be made, all the decisions, all the lies, all the guilt, all the shame keeps us in denial. And it keeps that hope alive that maybe this time they're going to tell the truth. Um, Maybe this time um, it's not going to be as painful as last time. Um, and when we're looking at other ways to kind of begin to set those boundaries, um, or how we're enabling allows a continuation, if not an escalation, of their behavior. Um, we really are going to have to stop and examine ourselves. We're really going to have to say, with no emotion involved, what is the absolute logical thing to do here? What would I tell somebody 1,000 miles away that I didn't know that was just hearing this situation? We really kind of have to sometimes stop and think. And I think this is why Al Anon or a therapist or a support group is so important, because it allows us to kind of touch base with someone who's been through um, what we're going through and can kind of guide us through that process, because it's super, super uncomfortable. And oftentimes we're so enmeshed that we can't tell what's right to do anymore and what's wrong to do anymore. And I don't like the word wrong, but less than helpful. Um, Another way we enable is we assume their responsibilities. So, for example, we begin to care for their kids. And I'm not saying dump them off at CPS or anything like that, but they no longer have to care for their kids because we'll care for their kids. Or um, I've even seen some parents do their kids' schoolwork. Um, we, rearrange our entire lives to make sure that they're not feeling the consequences of their choices. So my 21-year-old kid is um, smoking weed all day long and not doing anything else and is flunking out of class, but I'm going to help him with his grades this time because I don't want to lose the $6,000 I paid for classes. I get that. Um, but are we really helping them in the long run? Are we teaching them that there are consequences for their behaviors? Um, or we have this same kid and our control kind of kicks in, right? And we begin to lock them down and put them kind of in a cage and monitor their every step and their um, thought, for lack of a better term. And uh, we're enabling there because their addiction is screaming for a reason to use. And the more control we're putting on them, the more pressure we're putting on them. They don't have the same ability to cope that perhaps you and I do, or other people do. And their ability, their coping tool is to use. And that control is going to give them more and more and more and more and more reason to use. Um, we have to look at, are we allowing substance abuse like in our home? I'd much rather them use here with me where it's safe, that if something happens, I know they're okay. We're not honest about our feelings. We avoid the problem. I mean, there's a million ways that we can enable the people that we love. And I think it's really important that we get honest about where we're enabling, because the longer we continue to enable, the longer it's going to be for them to genuinely seek recovery on their own. There is nothing that we're going to be able to do that's going to help them create the desire to get well. That has to be an internal desire. Um, I think that with the people around me that are in need of help, that are sick, I love them. I let them live their life. I'm sorry that they went to jail again. That's terrible. I would get tired of going to jail too. Um, it's got to suck, plain and simple. Or they use their money for drugs as opposed to paying their probation. And that's really terrible that you don't have the money to pay your probation fees. I'm really sorry for you. I hope that works out. Maybe you can, something will come your way. I don't offer advice on how to get that money anymore either. Um, but I can understand how disappointing it would be to be in that situation, that my heart goes out to them. I'm not going to fix the problem, but I can have compassion for somebody who's in a less than ideal situation, self-created or not. I create my own situations all the time too. And my best friend's still compassionate with me every time I call her or, laughs at me. Um, but she doesn't fix it for me. Um, and so we really kind of have to start thinking about those things. How are we interacting with our loved ones as opposed to enabling them, right? We don't have to offer them advice. We don't have to fix them. We can love them just how they are, and we can kind of differentiate ourselves from their addiction. I know this is a big topic. I try to make the videos kind of compact so that way we can kind of get bored with them. I'm probably going to make another one to kind of continue this topic and talk about the feelings of enabling and why we enabling. I'm hoping you have a better understanding now of what enabling is and maybe some of the different ways that it can look. Again, I hope you enjoy this. If you want to kind of continue this conversation, the video is posted in the group. We can talk about it underneath the video. You can subscribe to the channel, Recovery for the Rest of Us. You can subscribe to the Facebook page, Recovery for the Rest of Us, Instagram. And if you have any questions, you can always send a message through any of those social media outlets. And I check them a couple times a week. I hope you're having a great week and take care. And thanks for watching.